Hey boys and girls, it's Miss Hamilton and I am outside in my backyard just enjoying this beautiful weather, and I hope you have too. So I want to do another social studies lesson with you today, and one of the standards that we didn't cover before we got out of school was learning about the history of McDowell County and Marion, where we live. We didn't get to talk about that a whole lot, so for the next few lessons, I'm going to bring you some stories and some interesting facts and things about some of the people who helped make McDowell County what it is today. Some of the people that were very important in our county's history. So the first story I want to tell you is a story about the first people who lived here. I wonder, can you guess who were the first people that lived here? It was the Cherokee Indians. They lived here before any of the other people moved into this area in North Carolina. So it was first inhabited by the Cherokee. Inhabited means those were the people that lived here. And they covered lots of area, lived in a lot of area around here, even up toward Boone and in the mountains and Old Fort, PG. All those areas belonged to the Cherokee. Then eventually the white man moved in, and they started coming in and wanting to take over some of the land that was the Cherokees to begin with. So for a while there was, the fighting between the two, and it was just hard for the Cherokee to fight the white people because there were so many of them. They just really couldn't fight them. But for a while there was some peace between the Cherokee tribe and the white men who were moving into this area. And so during that peacetime, the British, who were, that's where the first people came from, was Britain. The British, they went to the Cherokee and they offered to pay them for every scalp that they took of the white man. Now, they're paying the Indians to scalp and hurt and kill their people, their own people, which was kind of weird, wasn't it? But anyway, that's what they did. They paid them to do that because they didn't want them moving any further into this area, the white men. And so, if you don't know what scalping means, it's pretty gross. But what they would do would take their sharp knives and they would cut from here back, and they would cut the scalp off of a person, and they would take those scalps and they would hang them on their belt, and that was their way of showing, how many people they had fought, and the more you had, the better warrior you were. And so that was important back then. And so that's what they started doing. Well, there was a group of people that didn't feel real safe where they were at here in this area, and they decided that they were going to move to Fort McDowell. That name sounds familiar, doesn't it? So they were going to move to Fort McDowell, and so they were going to travel together because they felt like they were safer if there were more of them. So they were traveling to Fort McDowell. Well, they were raided by the Cherokee. And in the midst of that, the Cherokee took all the children. And I think there were 7 of them. Well, there was one little girl named Lydia. Her name was Lydia Birchfield. Now, they took Lydia and they scalped her. Well, in the midst of this raid, the adults, instead of trying to fight, they took off to Fort McDowell to get some more people, because they knew they didn't have enough people to fight the Cherokee. So they went back to check, to try to find the children and to get them back from the Indians, and they found Lydia, little Lydia Birchfield, and she had been scalped, and she was still alive. Can you believe it? She was. Well, they were able to nurse her back to health, and she survived, which was not something that happened a whole lot. But she survived, and Lydia herself told her great-grandson this story about what happened to her. And so she survived, but of course she had terrible scars all up on her head and her forehead, and so she wore a little lace cap for the rest of her life but she lived. She lived to be, I believe she lived to be in her 80s, is what she did. And you know what's really strange about this story? I guess the Cherokee didn't know this about Lydia, but do you know Lydia's great grandmother? She was a Cherokee Indian. And those Cherokee didn't realize that. They didn't know that Lydia was part Cherokee when they scalped her. And so that's just a little piece of history from McDowell County, way a long time ago. And I'll tell you how long ago it was. It happened, this raid, and this happened to Lydia right as the Declaration of Independence was being signed. Right at the same time. So now your homework for me is to find out what year this raid and this accident, this not an accident, this thing happened to Miss Lydia. So that's your homework today, is to find out what year this would have happened, because it happened the same time as the Declaration of Independence was signed for our country. There's your homework for tonight. And I'll be back tomorrow with another really cool story for you about McDowell County. Bye-bye.